Good evening. At this time, if you would, please silence your phones and be advised that these proceedings are being recorded. If you desire to address the City Council during the meeting, please complete a request to speak form available at the entrance and present it to the City Clerk. Speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time. At this time, I will call to order the City Council meeting of the City of Grand Terrace, regular meeting of January 22nd, 2019. Tonight, our invocation will be given by Pastor Stephen Brandt of the Church on the Hill, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Council Member Jeff Allen. If you would, please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
A word of prayer. Our gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we look to you tonight for your wisdom, for your counsel, and for your guidance. We pray your blessings upon our community in Grand Terrace, for your peace to be with us, with our families and our homes. And Lord, I pray for our mayor tonight and for each of our council members, that you would give them wisdom as they conduct the business, Lord, presented before us this evening. We thank you for your presence and your watchfulness over us, and we continue to look to you for your continual guidance and direction in our lives, in our families, and in our community. In Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Brandt. Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Allen?
Here.
Councilmember Hussey?
Present.
Councilmember Robles?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
I am here.
Mayor McNabeau?
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, we do not have any special presentations, so we'll move to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They are typically acted upon by the City Council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may remove an item of the consent calendar for discussion. Are there any requests to remove items at this time? All right. If not, I will entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Hussey, second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and the mayor voting yes.
Thank you. We'll move to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items not appearing on the regular agenda. Because of restrictions contained in California law, City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. Items may also be agendized on future meeting agendas. Are there any requests to speak during this time? Thank you. Jeffrey McConnell is our first speaker.
Jeffrey McConnell, Walnut Avenue, Grand Terrace. Happy New Year. At the beginning of the year, I always look forward to certain things, such as a prioritization workshop, which I've attended many over the years, and I haven't seen or heard anything about it, so I thought I'd bring that up. Are we going to have one again this year? Because I'm sure there are people involved in the community that would like to participate. And also a reminder that the other new business that was postponed until after the election / New Year was the survey that we decided, it was decided that should be more than one question on the survey. And so I'd like to ask when that's going to come up. And once again, maybe the public might want to be involved in that too, rather than just a few select people. I just prefer to hear it from the people rather than being swayed by people who don't live in Grand Terrace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Our next speaker is Mr. Jeremy Briggs.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. Just first wanted to come out and say thank you guys for coming out on opening day for our ceremonies. It was a big help. We appreciate it. I'm sorry the mic wasn't working. I was kind of thinking you cut me off already and make me yell again, but you know, I'm glad the mic's working. Other reason I'm in here and I wanted to speak today was being part of the community and coaching. It brings me to everybody that I meet. And sometimes I see people that I've known in this community that I met here when I was a 16-year-old kid riding a bike through this town. So I have a guy that I know. Like I said, I'm not sure this is the right place to be, but I know you guys can direct me to where to go. Last week, I guess he hit it real hard. Rains wiped out his house, flooded, lost his refrigerator, everything. He has a 4-year-old daughter that he handles on his own 24/7. He's lost his job due to the car he lost. So the last week I've been helping out as much as I can with it. We've just taken over childcare basically full time in my house to make sure she eats and gets to school every day and whatever we can do. I don't have a lot. I'm comfortable where I'm at, but I don't have millions of dollars to just spread and give out. And I just want to know what we can do. He's been in this community as long as I've been in this community. So I don't want to see him move out of this community and I lose, my daughters lose a friend or, you know, someone that could benefit to live, to go to the school here instead of having to go to a lower income community where they don't have the best schools. My daughters have been very successful here. They have friends that they've known here since they went to TK, basketball, dance, and I want to see this little girl have the same benefits. He just needs a little bit of help and I just want to know what I need to do to help. He's too proud to say, hey, help me, but I'm too big of a big brother to say I'm not gonna help. So I just wanna reach out and see what I need to do or where I need to go to get him in a better place. You know, he has, you know, they're living out of an ice chest and day to day, you know, where he's gonna go, how he's gonna get to school, you know. Benefit for me, for him, he has people like me that no matter, I don't care how long it's been since I've talked to him, I got his back. I'm gonna make sure he's taken care of, especially for that little girl. I got 3 of my own and I couldn't imagine not taking care of him. And I know he's doing it by himself. I'm lucky to have a team behind me. So that's pretty much my biggest reach out is I just wanna know what I gotta do to put him in a better situation, what the community could do. I mean, I know we can all say send him down to the county, but I wanna do more than just sending him down to the county and wait in line and maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't. All right, thank you, have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. All right, that was our last request to speak form. So we will bring it back to City Council for their comments. We'll begin with Council Member Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Today I had the opportunity to participate in the LAFCO workshop at San Bernardino down at the old train depot station. LAFCO is the Local Agency Formation Commission. And I learned quite a lot about what they do and how important they are for us. They call themselves the legislative watchdog and guardians of the public good. I didn't realize LAFCO did so much. I thought they just oversaw the boundaries, but they oversee every district within their territory. And in San Bernardino County, there's over 3,000 districts of various types that LAFCO has to take care of. And so it was really an eye-opener for me. I don't want to say it was exciting being there, but I'm glad I had a good night's rest before. They're going to be doing some reviews in the upcoming couple of years on street lighting and parks and recreation roads, so we may be hearing from them. I also attended Assemblymember Reyes's swearing-in ceremony last Friday, and that was a really great event. she was sworn in by the leader of the assembly.
Speaker of the House.
Speaker of this, yeah. Well, I can't remember his name, Anthony.
Assemblyman Rendon.
Rendon, yeah. So one of the things that I've left there with, though, was her desire to start this Policy 47 initiative. And this is something for bold, energetic residents of the 47th Assembly District to join her team on one of her policy committees. They have applications online, and I have a paper one that I picked up at the event. There's a whole variety of policy committees because she's wanting to put together some a policy package to bring before the 2020 legislative session. So for those in the listening audience, if you're interested in economic development or early childhood education, environmental justice, government transparency and access, health, higher education, homelessness, immigration, K through 12 education, labor, LGBTQ initiatives, mental health, poverty, restorative justice, seniors, transportation, and veterans are the committees right now that she has put together, and she said that she's open for having other committees for as long as it can address policy initiatives. So if these are things that you might be interested in being a part of, these committees will meet 6 times a year and discuss and draft policies that will be published in the 2019-2027 reports, and and maybe you'll get a law passed with your name. Or you can tell your grandkids how important you were sometime. So the last thing I wanted to ask about is, I had mentioned this once before. I took a walk at the Susan Petta Park over at the Senior Center. And as beautiful as a park as it is, it seems like some of the growth, and it's a little bit overgrown over on the south side, I think it would be. And some of the residents who live on the other side of the wall, that, like, for example, there's a tree in the park that has died and it's leaning, its branches fell over. She had her gardener take care of it, the part that was on her land, on her property. But the residents on the other side of the wall have made mention of it and have asked me to ask if there's they don't know who's responsible for it because they're not members of the senior center, and I'm not either. But I just wanted to bring that up and see if I don't know who maintains it, if we do or they do, Mr. City Manager, but I just wanted to let you know about that other residents are looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Bill Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight in this cold night. I just have a couple of things. Jeremy, it was an honor being there for your opening ceremonies. The young lady there who sung that national anthem was really beautiful song. She did a really good job, and great seeing all those kids there. Brings back a lot of memories when I was coaching. Thank you for doing that for the city and for the kids. Couple things, just a brief thing. What Mr. McCall said, the thing as far as having a survey. I know, Mr. Duffy, we turned down that one survey because it was going to cost too much, but maybe we could figure out another way for a survey to see what the residents want, if that's all right with the other council. I'd like to see that go through. And then a couple things, since I'm going to start wearing a mask when I go to Stater Brothers or something because I get more of my counseling done there. I don't know, I might need a quorum, but one of the big concerns is that what I get hit on almost every day is the parking lot and by the GT pit stop and how it's becoming an eyesore and it looks like a used car lot. If we could address what's going on with that, get out there. And then the hiking trail, a lot of rumors going on with the hiking trail. I know we're going to look at drawings and stuff if we get the public involved in that and the community and let them know, instead of rumors, hands-on what's going on. Because people think that they're going to have the trail through their backyard, which is not going to be that way. But just get the right information out there for them if we could work on something. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Councilmember Sylvia Robles.
Thank you. Friday, the 18th, I attended the League of Cities Revenue and Taxation Policy Committee in Sacramento. I'm just going to read what happened there. I'm not endorsing any of these things. These are just what I'm going to read what happened there. We received a comprehensive briefing on Governor Gavin Newsom's budget and legislative priorities. And two, we also received an improved league staff work plan as it relates to revenue and taxation issues. So on the budget that the governor has, there's $144 billion in general fund spending, $209 billion when special funds and bond proceed allocations are counted. The governor plans on increasing the rainy day reserve by $15.3 billion. He has plans to expand childcare by $500 million, increase CalWorks by 25%. He plans on spending $81 billion on K through 12 community colleges, including $750 million to address barriers to full-time kindergarten. Some of the things I'm reading that I've never thought about was that there isn't the right amount of bathrooms for full-time kindergarten, so there's some huge infrastructure issues. Extending free community college to 2 years, doubling the state's earned income tax credit for low-income households, expanding Medi-Cal to serve undocumented youth between 19 and 25, providing 6 months parental leave, and there is no details on that other than they are targeting about 70% of the income to be restored while people are on leave. Areas of local city concern, the governor plans to tie SB1 funding to housing production. By example, meaning that cities not meeting the regional housing needs assessment goals, that there will be some type of sanctions. So each city gets some needs assessment on some low, moderate income housing they're supposed to be producing. Something like 75% of the cities do not meet those goals. And the governor is stating that he's going to have more money for housing and transit-centered housing, and he's going to be coalescing those into a big effort. And those cities who want these, we're going to have to produce in our regional housing needs assessment goals. As far as redevelopment, the governor will not comment on restoring RDAs and has instead stated that infrastructure financing districts could become more useful by repealing the current 55% vote and pairing them with federal opportunity zone incentives. As far as the revenue taxation, one of the big issues that's carrying over from previous years was South Dakota versus Mayfair decision. They're moving on how to deal with the fact that now the principle of situs is going to be not where you purchase a good, but where it ends up being. So if you all this internet shopping, you buy something, for example, Mayfair had furniture and all that, and it comes, you say you did that in North Dakota, but it was delivered in California, the sales tax would come here. And now I gotta change my. So quickly, I'm gonna just highlight some key parts of the strategic goals for the League of Cities. For this, they're gonna to look at providing cities additional funding and tools and preserve local authority to address housing production. So they're going to be fighting for us on this local authority issue. Improve disaster preparedness, recovering climate resiliency, promote sustainability of public pension, retirement, health benefits, and address public safety concerns of California cities. This is the draft work proposal. Again, it's going to be the provide cities additional tools and funding to preserve local authority to address housing production, affordability, and homelessness, and all the other things I just stated. Then there's some issues having to do with the CAL FIRE ruling, and we don't have anything as far as Friday. affecting how CalPERS pensions and post-employment retirement benefits will be dealt with. Engage in any tax reform discussions that may develop at the state level using league policies as guidelines. And as far as vehicle license fees, new incorporations annexation, sponsor legislation to address fiscal viability of new incorporations annexations of inhabit cities. Remain alert for proposals that could undermine local revenue or affect funding for infrastructure or shift costs and responsibilities. Again, to monitor and protect vital local revenues, including transit occupancy tax and utility users tax, remain informed and take action when necessary to prohibit additional state mandates that are not funded, and also to monitor issues associated with the California Tax and Fee Administration. So I'm sorry it takes so long, but it was kind of like where we set the table for the legislative year, and this is the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Robles. Mayor Pro Tem Doug Wilson.
Just briefly, Mayor, I did attend the Water Authority meeting a week and a half ago, and it's interesting, you know, the scale that we deal with at our local situation compared to large-scale water concerns. There's a huge dam that we are 20% of, or at least we're sharing some cost. May not be 20%, but anyway, that we are putting a little money into as a body, and the water agency elected to reduce its let's call it its footprint in relation to the demand that they believe that they're forecasted to have, and they have a rationale for it. They've studied it. In the long run, I would agree with them. But the amount of area that is up in Northern California and actually a little bit closer to Central, you know, a lot of it has to do with this particular body of water. And I don't know if I can sketch this real well in the air. But there's a huge dam and then a pass through and over to the California Aqueduct. And then there's another line that runs back basically that feeds back into the dam. And so, you know, it seems like it's a good project. It's a monstrous amount of water that we're talking about, but it's necessary. I mean, for us, you know, you don't do development without water, and you don't, you're not able to really make anything decent or livable without it. So I would say that it's as important as the land entitlement that we experience. There's also there was a lot of conversation about local area improvements so far as recapturing water, which I was happy to hear about because it's always seemed interesting to me that we can end up with a deluge of water and it all goes down to the ocean. But instead, the way they've structured, and they showed some cross sections in it, the way they've structured their recovery efforts will look like they'll actually work. The next meeting is 3 months from now, and I'm happy to attend these. It's something I'm very interested in, and I think it's very beneficial to this area. I was a little bit disappointed in our list, and I would just make mention of that, even though I know we've already, you know, consented to send it. But the one that we were going to send to the assembly member, I know we had some discussion about local roadway money, but yet it did not appear in there. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to amend that list because it's such a huge concern to us. That's a large amount of money, and without some aid, considering the fact that the regional aspect can dump a bunch of traffic onto our area, increase it by 10,000 cars a day, and yet there's no recourse for us. Instead, we watch the roads alligator, and we can't afford that. It's just we don't have the capacity to generate the cash to be able to keep up with the wear, and we know what happens if it falls apart. Other than that, that's all I've got. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I attended my first Omnitrans meeting on January 8th. It was interesting. They were getting ready to start their negotiation with their labor for the coming year. CEO reported on fare revenues, and he said that Omnitrans fare revenue is on the rise despite ridership declines, which is kind of interesting. The revenue for 2018 increased 2% over 2017, and the current year is on track to grow as much as 8%. The increase is primarily attributed, in his opinion, to Go Smart, which is a college program, and that's shown rate increases implemented in 2018 for the Go Smart college program. Also, mobile fare sales have contributed. Further on, he talked about a reduction in fuel costs, which I believe probably had something to do with the revenue as well. But there's a decline in the fueling of the buses by the way that they have implemented a pipeline gas fueling infrastructure. The total cost for their natural gas and unleaded gasoline has decreased in price, and they also get a refund through the alternative fuel tax credit that was passed by Congress in 2012, also a low carbon fuel tax credit. They are looking ahead as more access unleaded gasoline vehicles for the fleet are replaced with compressed natural gas vehicles, and they hope to further decrease the amount that they are spending on fuel and looking at an approximate annual savings of $400,000, which is substantial. They are transitioning their entire fleet to this natural gas, and that will stabilize the volatility in fuel prices. Also, it reduces Omnitrans's carbon footprint, which is very important. We voted to authorize the CEO to award a few contracts, one to Bridgestone America's Tire Operations for bus tire leases for a 3-year base period. So they use so many tires, they actually lease them. They do not buy them, which is kind of an interesting thing. Enpro Services was another contract we authorized, and that is to have them modernize and then complete maintenance and repair services for a year for the passenger elevators at the East Valley facility. And then we also authorized the CEO to sign a sole source contract with TransTrack Systems for financial operating and reporting software maintenance. San Bernardino County Transportation Authority met a week later than usual. So we talked with General Counsel during a closed session. During open session, we approved a number of items. One was the use of a template for license agreement for the storage of private rail cars. They find that they have these vacant rail spurs at the end of their property yard that don't get used at all, and so they will be renting those to people that have private rail cars that they use for taking trips places. I guess there are people that have these really, really nice rail cars, and that's the way they choose to travel, and they need a place to park them. So SBCTA will be making a little bit of money through the rental of those. We also voted to allocate additional state transit assistance funds to Mountain Transit for the purchase of properties in Crestline and the city of Big Bear Lake. We approved hearings to consider resolutions of necessity for parcels of State Route 60 Central Avenue Improvement Project in the city of Chino. These are condemnation hearings, but it's the beginning of that process. So any large project that they have where they need to acquire even temporary easements, not even necessarily acquiring land for good, but just an area that they need to work on the project, they do go through and they ask the board to consider a resolution of necessity hearing to begin the process since they take so long, and it helps them keep their projects on track. But in the interim, they continue to negotiate with property owners, and from the time that the preview went to the Metro Valley study session prior to this board meeting, there were a number of these properties that they were able to come to a suitable negotiation with the property owners. So that's always good to see. I think they cut it in half. And then there's so many resolutions of necessity that come to us for consideration for the Interstate 10 I-Corridor Contract 1 project area, and this is in the cities of Montclair and Upland and Ontario, so we approved those as well. We awarded contracts to Royal Coaches for towing and freeway service patrol for beats 10 and 23. We heard a South Coast Air Quality Management District presentation on a proposed tax measure. We listened, we gave feedback, and we received a Metro Gold Line Foothill Extension Phase 2B project update. On January 9th, we had our study session for the coming board meeting, where again, we had a preview of resolutions of necessity considerations. These are even more properties than were considered at the board prior to this, and it's for the cities of Montclair, Upland, and Ontario, and also parcel acquisition for Redlands Passenger Rail Project. We recommended approval of a increase in allowances and contingency for a contract with Flatiron West for the Interstate 5 Baseline Road Interchange Project. We recommended amendments to a cooperative agreement with the City of Ontario, increasing the city's contribution, and using Trade Corridor Improvement Funds and Measure I Valley Freeway Interchange Program funds for the Archibald Avenue Improvement Project on the State Route 60. We also approved an increase in contingency for a contract with Downing Construction for early utility relocations for water and sewer utilities. And these are located in the cities of San Bernardino, Loma Linda, and this is in support of the Redlands Passenger Rail. But the fun stuff started on January 13th with the Grand Terrace Basketball League opening ceremonies. And I know my colleague already spoke about it, but I did enjoy that opening ceremony despite having the microphone. I believe that the microphone went out because they didn't want us electeds taking a long time to speak. Good move. I do applaud the young lady who sang without a microphone. She did an excellent job. And thank you to all the board members who make that league possible. I attended Assemblymember Reyes' community swearing-in ceremony, and she was very happy to see representatives from the city of Grand Terrace there. And I had an opportunity to meet with some friends of the Santa Ana River Trail, if you will, who invited the new supervisor, Don Rao, out to see the unfinished portion of the Santa Ana River Trail and get her interest in finding out what happened to the funds that were supposed to finish that from Waterman Avenue to east of here up towards Mentone. So she was very interested in the project, and she will be looking into that. And one last thing, the SBX Saturday service, the free service they're having, there's one more Saturday left in January, the 26th. There will be free rides on that day as well. Finally, I will say I am complete with my report, so we will move on to new business because we have no public hearings and we have no unfinished business. So we will move to item 6 of our agenda, which is a Grand Terrace business license processing. Assistant City Manager, Cynthia Fortune.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Cynthia Fortune, Assistant City Manager. The staff report before you tonight is our business licensing report as of December 31st, 2018. The staff report supports goal number 1, ensuring our fiscal viability, and goal number 3, promoting economic development through the regular monitoring and reporting of business licenses issued in the city. So what we wanted to do was just do a refresher and give an explanation of what our business license process is. So if a person were to walk into City Hall would aid, City Hall staff would aid the person in the completion of that business license, determine the fee based on our business license schedule, and collect that fee from said applicant. We deposit that money, then the documentation is sent to our business license consultant, who is Muni Services / Avenue Insights. The application is entered to a database, and this is what the consultant does. Then it is put on hold. Every week, we get that hold report from Muni Services saying, are you approving? So we send that to our planning department for their review in case there are any permits associated with that business license, because they're doing a business license in the city. And once we've done a thorough review, when I say we, the city, we send it back to Muni Services, telling them either continue to hold or release that business license certificate. So that's the standard process when we do a walk-in. Now, when a mail-in is done, meaning they either did it online or they took a hard copy, completed it, and mailed it to Muni Services, they put in the data into their database, notify us, and then again, same said application, applicant's vendor is put on that same hold report that we get every week. City reviews it and sends it back straight to Muni Services. So they don't automatically release any business license certificates until we actually send them a final approval. So now in relation to renewals, during the month of December, again, our consultant sends out all these renewals. The renewal form is prepared in October, given to us in November for review, and once approved, they send them out. And our license has a lifetime of January 1st to December 31st, so it's calendar year. They have until the 31st to actually turn in their application and pay the fee, whether it's walk-in, online, or through the mail. After which, our agreement is that they send 2 more notifications after that, informing them that they're late and this is the penalty. And we have a progressive penalty. I believe it's 10% for each month that it's late, to a maximum of 50% of what your business license fee would be based on your gross receipts. I'm sorry, that's blurry. So for 2018, licenses and renewals, total business licenses issued were actually 747, of which almost half are for businesses located physically in the city and for those located outside. Now, only for business licenses who have physical locations in the city, the 355, 38 were new for calendar, excuse me, for calendar year 2018, and renewals were a little over 300. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions City Council may have.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Are there questions of staff at this time? Councilmember Hussey.
Thank you for the report. One of the concerns was, and you mentioned it because, a resident and pretty legit concern was, the follow-through as far as people not renewing their license, and there was some found out that, they bypassed the 3 months and, the waivers on penalties. I mean, what are we going to do? Because, are we doing follow-up on this, or the multi-service doing the follow-up on this? Because seems to be like people are not renewing them, and they're just putting them away on the corner of their desk in the mail. And I want to know what our status is on that and what we have been doing. Are we been sending code out there to make sure that they're getting their business license? Because it's not fair for people who've been paying it every year, and some people just bypass it. And I don't know if people were taking advantage of the city when the city was on dark times.
Well, as far as the administration point, this is what the Finance Department of Muni Services does. Now, as far as going out and enforcing, that is code enforcement, and so if Director Molina would like to discuss that.
Yes, thank you. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. So last year, November, December, we did go to each business that was on our list of not having renewed. And so businesses, through that process, we identified a number of businesses that had renewed, and so they had their business license, and so we scratched them off the list. We identified some businesses that hadn't renewed, and so they were issued citations, and we issued 24 citations through this process. We also identified quite a number of businesses that were no longer operating. So we removed some more businesses from the list. Then we had a number of home-based businesses that we've reached out to. We've been able to close Most of them, we haven't closed all of them. We're still trying to reach out, make sure they're still not in business. So what we have left from that exercise are 19 businesses that are still pending.
Yeah, speaking of home-based business, because I got a complaint about somebody running a beauty shop in one of their garages, and my concern is, besides, if they have a business license, the environmental impact on that, as far as, chemicals and, the safety concerns.
So if we could get the information where that particular business is operating, our home-based businesses, we don't allow customers to the property. And so, and we wouldn't approve that type of business as a home-based business. So if we can get more information, we can follow up on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? I have a question. Don't leave yet. As far as your process, if somebody is applying for a business license, do they have to include a payment when they apply?
Yes, that is, yeah. I'm sorry, Mayor, yes, they do. If they're applying for a license, they have to explain their business, and it's part of the application. And yes, they have to do a payment in order for us to process their license.
Would there ever be a misunderstanding from somebody who sent in an application with a payment that they had been approved and started to do business, and then were told that they could not do business, since whatever business they had been applying for a license for had not been approved?
And I don't know that, I'm going to have to ask our analyst if you can help.
Yeah, I'd like to know what kind of feedback they get on the process as it's pending.
Yeah, can we get back to you on that, Mayor? I don't know if we necessarily actually have denied a business that has come in. If there would be a denial, would that not, it would have been based on whether their planning and development services would have been reviewing?
Well, Mayor, if I might.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes, for the record, G. Harold Duffy, City Manager. I think the question that's being asked is, when can someone actually start operating their business? When they submit their application, or when the item's actually issued? When should they be starting the business?
And further, what feedback are they given when they apply?
Yes.
Are they told what the parameters are?
So Madam Mayor, I can.
Director
help-
Molina?
Help in part on this one. So when we get customers come into the city offices, or if they speak to us on the phone, we do go over their use and tell them what type of application. We tell them basically it's a 3-step process. You submit your application through the city. If you're operating out of a commercial location, you submit your business license. Once the city planning department clears the zoning for that particular business at that location, then we kick that application over to Building and Safety, and Building and Safety will schedule a occupancy inspection. And so once that occupancy inspection is cleared, then we tell them that you are now issued a business license and can start operating. And they get a copy of that C of O. We explain the same thing if it's a home-based business, what the process is and when they can start conducting business. And so we do give them that information.
And if they apply online?
That's when they apply online. Also, we'll have to get together with Cynthia Fortune, Ms. Fortune on that to see what prompt comes up on the online website.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Councilmember Allen?
Your question prompted a question in my mind. If there's payment due with the initial application, how would the business owner know the gross receipts when they haven't been open yet for business? And furthermore, do you ask for verification of the amount that they report in their gross?
We ask for a projection. Yeah. So they project a business. So if they're planning to open a restaurant with an occupancy of 100, they can do the projection themselves. If they are over or under, it is trued up, so to speak, at the next year's business license. They're even given a credit for the following year, or they have to pay if they come back and say, our actual prior year's total gross receipts is this much. No, we don't ask for proof because the form that they sign says they're certifying that the numbers they put in are true and correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hussey.
I know it's probably going to be asked, but we have a lot of residents that work from their home with their companies, and they get deliveries. They're not required to have a business license. They take their deliveries to like other stores, or they're just working from their house for their company. Major companies, I mean, is that required to have a business license or some kind of permit or something with that?
So, Madam Mayor, if I may, yes, any business, any person that is conducting business needs a business license and a permit. And so if you're home-based, and home-based businesses are geared just towards that, the person that does consulting or, paperwork, everything's online, there's no customers coming to the home, that's all home-based businesses.
Thank you, Director Molina. I think he was, were you saying if they were part of a larger organization, but they just work from
They're
home?
not their own business. It's just like they're like working for another company, but that's, it's not like me when I worked for the prison. I didn't bring inmates home, so.
So what I tell people.
You might have done paperwork, though.
Well, what I tell people at the counter is that if you're required to, do your taxes as a business through the tax board, then you're a business and you need to get a home-based business permit.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because there's some people that I know that do that. They just work out of their house and they get like UPS deliveries, and but it's not their business, so.
Yes, if I can just
Mr. Duffy?
interject, based on the question that was asked, that if you are working from home and there is a business, you're part of a major business and it's not your business, and you say, for example, some people telecommute sometimes and stuff like that, and they're getting some packages, you are not required to have a business license. If the business is in your name, and as Ms. Molina said, if you are required to register through the tax board, then absolutely you need a business license. And actually, that's one of the ways in which Muni Services is providing to help us with home-based businesses, because they go back and they look at the tax records and they see that, there's 8 businesses here that have that are filing tax records for home-based businesses, but they don't have a business license. And then they contact them and they kind of true that up.
Councilmember Hussey.
No, thank you. I just wanted to get clarification, because I know some people watch on channels and they might be asking that question, so thank you.
Mayor, I did want to add one more point that about the business license and the estimates. So there is a cap on the total amount that we can provide. So it's not as if someone came in and said, I'm going to be making this type of money annually, and then they end up having this huge business. There's a cap on what is the cap on the percentage amount?
It's a little over $1,000 for the annual business license.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more further questions, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no takers, I'll bring it back. This is a receive and file. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we receive and file the report.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Allen, second by Councilmember Hussey. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with Council Members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and the mayor voting yes.
Thank you. We'll move to item 7, which is the City of Grand Terrace special events list for calendar year 2019. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, for the record, Gerald Duffy, City Manager. This is the 2019 special events. This is the list of special events for 2019, and it's a collaboration and a partnership with community organizations. And so what we're trying to do is basically set the stage and kind of outline the process in which we'll be using for the majority of the community events that are going to be occurring in the city this year. So first up, one of the things that we started last year was we started to do a special events committee. So whenever there's a special event in the city, we convene this special events committee. It consists of sheriffs, fire, public works, code enforcement, administration, and the applicant who is going to be putting on the event. So part of our discussion is to determine, to meet with the event organizer at a minimum 45 days before the event and find out the resources that they are going to be needing. And then based on that resource, we determine the resources and the fees that need to apply in terms of resources they need for the police, fire, public works, or park use fees. If there is a request for a waiver, we would then take that to the council and ask them to waive that. Particularly tonight, we're talking about the special events in which the city will be taking the lead on the majority of the activities. Some of the activities we partnered with in previous years, but we are going to be the lead in the majority of these items that we're talking about. So first up, we had the rabies vaccination that occurred recently, and we actually had a really good turnout this year in terms of participation in the event, and it's a reduced cost for vaccinations along with chipping of your animals, and it was very well attended, I would say, by most of the community. Next, we have the Walk on Blue Mountain. It was just 2 weeks ago, we had the Friends of the Blue Mountain come into the city, and they said, 10 years ago, the city started this program. And we've been very active in pulling this together, but we're sort of losing some of our membership, and we'd like the city to take this over, but they're going to be engaged and involved in helping us do this. So one of the things that we're doing also, because we have the Parks Commission, we have assigned 2 members of the Park Commission to act as our community liaisons on this activity. And so they will be working with the city staff and convening with that special events committee, and also with the Friends of the Blue Mountain to sit down and kind of develop a program for our Blue Mountain Walk, which occurs the first weekend in March, and it's scheduled for March 3rd. That's a Sunday this year, I believe. And the cost for that event, we estimate to be about $3,000. That's staff time and some supplies, but majority staff time in terms of setting up, sheriff overtime and things of that particular nature. Item that we added last year was the American Red Cross Blood Drive. We were very successful in last year's blood drive, and they wanted to come back and do it again. And actually, I believe that the American Red Cross will be coming to the council in February to provide a sort of a presentation on giving some of the stats and our numbers and talking about the program for the new year. We estimate the cost of that to be about $500 in staff time and setup. The next item is partnering with the community for Community Cleanup Day. It's wall painting. So we are looking at all of the walls on our major corridors, and we're looking at them in terms of how they need to be painted and spruced up. So our overall goal is to get the community involved and go out and paint the walls throughout the city on Barton Road and on Mount Vernon, and then also on Main Street. And we estimate that cost to be approximately $1,000 with staff time and supplies. Next up, we have the annual evening under the, it's not even under, it's the Mayor's State of the City address. We also work with the Chamber of Commerce to do that. And so it's just a matter of staff working with the mayor to prepare the slideshow, and also we usually send out Public Works to set up for the event, bring our materials out and our tables and our displays. So we anticipate that to be no more than about $300 for that particular program. Next, we have the annual art show that occurs the first week in May, and we anticipate, we also added a program, music, to this program also. It worked out pretty well last year. We anticipate that with supplies and music, the cost would be around $700 to set that program up. Next, we have the partnership that we work with Memorial Day. And here's the scenario. We don't put on this particular event, and we have no plans to put on this event at this time. But if there is an organization within the city that is going to be doing a Memorial Day event, we encourage them to come to the city minimum 45 days in advance so we can do the logistics and set this up and be able to make sure that all the resources that are needed are there. Then we have the annual bulky item pickup program. That's actually a part of our contract with Burtech, and we get large volumes of bulky items, and the community seems to really like this. We anticipate the overall cost for that event is about $5,000. That's actually already in our solid waste contract, We do spend a little extra staff time, but other than that, it's an event that's very well received. And, you know, as it's grown a little bit over the years, we've added shredding to the program now, and so it's really been a pretty good event for us. Last year, we had a very short summer recreation activities program. We want to expand that this year, and so we will be working with the Park and Recreations Committee and working to try and generate interest in yoga, Tai Chi, and Zumba, and any other activities that we can put together. We also had summer swim last year. We anticipate that cost being around $3,000 for the overall program, instructors, and setup at the particular events. The next item, we have movies and music in the park. This was actually, we had 4 events last year, and it was very successful. One of the things that I want to add regarding all of these programs, there's the cost that the city has, and what's a little bit different than in the past, our overall goal is to reach out to have community sponsors for some of the events also. And so we want to plan in advance, like, for example, movies and music in the park. We anticipate having that nailed down by the end of March, early April. And we'll send the feeler out to the type of music people want to see, the movies they want to see, and then we'll also reach out to sponsors to see who wants to sponsor in the community, or if we have corporate sponsors that want to sponsor that. And, you know, one of the great things about movies and music in the park is we were actually able to have people go to different parks, and they were experiencing the different feel and discovering some of our parks and how nice they are throughout the city. And we anticipate that to be about $2,000 for that particular program. Also, we had Halloween Trunk or Treat. That occurs on October 31st from 6 to 9. We were actually the lead last year. We'll take the lead again this year. We anticipate that to be no more than $1,000. It worked out pretty well. The kids had a great time, and we had really great attendance at that particular event. And we have the annual Country Fair put on by our Historical and Cultural Committee, along with the art show. And we also added music to that particular event this past year. We anticipate the overall cost to be about $1,000, and that occurs on the first Saturday in November. And much like the Memorial Day event, we'll be partnering with either the foundation or any other local group that is going to be putting on a Veterans Day celebration. So in the most popular event that we have is the Light Up Grand Terrace. And this kind of brings this entire process to one of the thoughts that I'd like the council to consider. The Light Up Grand Terrace event could not exist if it were not for hundreds of hours of volunteer time that put this on. And the coordination and the effort put on by that group is really a testament to understanding that you can't do a comprehensive, well-attended event in Grand Terrace unless you get the community involved. And so as we move forward in this process, one of the things that we should consider is the administrative oversight of these particular programs. As it stands right now, this list of programs, because it has the City of Grand Terrace name attached to it, or the city facility, I'm not going to let any of these events linger because it reflects upon the city. So that means this is going to require some additional time for me to be actively involved. I can delegate to the staff that we have, but one of the things that we may want to consider now or in the future is getting someone on board with the same commitment that we're seeing for the Light Up Grand Terrace to do some kind of part-time work to coordinate these activities. Now, we can certainly do it with our existing staff, but having a liaison with the community and having that person actively out there will allow us to carry on participation from event to event. So that's something to consider this year and next year in terms of how much time these events are taking, and then how do we maximize the use of our time, and if a coordinator, a part-time coordinator would be a benefit for the community. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Councilmember Hussey.
Yeah, Mr. Duffy, the walk on Blue Mountain, and I know you mentioned sponsors. I wonder if we could get a sponsor to have a off-road vehicle or some kind of little vehicle to take some of our seniors up on the top of the mountain, physically challenged ones and special needs, because I know they can't walk up there, but I like them to enjoy the scenery and just enjoy the day. So if we could do something, that's thought, if we could do something like that. Either that or get the donkeys to take us up or something, I don't.
Absolutely, sir. We'll put that down as,
thank
and
you.
come back to you with that.
Other questions of staff? Okay. Any member of the public wishing to speak on this item? All right, seeing no takers, it is a receive and file. Is there a motion to receive and file?
Sure, I'll move that we receive and file this report.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Allen, second by Councilmember Hussey. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and Mayor voting yes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 8, which is notice of completion for the 2018-19 Capital Improvement Program completed by Hardy and Harper. Mr. Alan French, Public Works Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Alan French, Public Works. Here to present this item, the notice of completion for our Year 2 CIP project. This item supports the 2030 goal number 2 to maintain public safety by investing in critical improvements into infrastructure. The 5-year CIP was adopted in November 2016 based on the pavement study that was done earlier that year, which included sidewalk, curb repair, ADA ramps, and pavement treatments. 2017, the council awarded the first of the contracts, which included slurry seal of approximately 80 streets. In June 2017, the council awarded the contract for the second year for $756,000 with a 10% contingency, which included grind and overlay of approximately about 10 streets and slurry seal of 23 streets. That included such streets as McLaren and Vista Grande. It had both pavement treatments, which is slurry seal, as you can see here, and they did some grind and overlay of the 10 streets. The project was completed, total cost of $822,580. We have processed 2 payments to the contractor totaling $649,000. After the NOC is filed, we will pay the retention that's been held at this time for $41,130. This is one of the streets we capped with 1.5 inches of rubberized asphalt. At this time, staff is requesting direction to file the notice of completion for the Year 2 CIP and appropriate the funds from the gas tax and Measure I balances to process the payments. I'm here to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Director French. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. French, I know that we used rubberized material, and I know there was also a program that was associated with that. What's our status on the money that is supposed to come back to us in relation to the rubberized?
The status is we're getting our paperwork together to submit for the reimbursement. That was a reimbursement grant, so we get all our paperwork together with the money that we've spent on that and purchasing of the rubberized material. We send it into Cal Recycle, and then they will send us the reimbursement check.
Okay, so do you have an ETA or do we have an ETA?
It's definitely this year. We're working on finalizing the payment to close out the project.
Yeah.
And then, because we have to send that along with the paperwork for the reimbursement. So once that gets done, then we'll send that in for the
10-4.
reimbursement.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay. How are we looking for the coming year?
The next year, we're working right now to see our estimate of revenue or improvement money that we're going to be getting from our gas tax, Measure I, and SB 1. So we'll hopefully get that projection together, and then we'll estimate how many streets we can do for year 3.
Okay. Did you have something further you'd like to say, Director French?
And no, I was just clarifying some of the data that was on the slide.
Okay.
So we should be good.
All right, thank you for your report. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? All right. Seeing no takers, I'll bring it back to council to consider the recommendations of staff. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone that would like to make a motion on this
I'll
item?
make that motion that we direct staff to file that notice of completion for the fiscal year 2018-19 capital improvement program and request additional appropriations for the final payments to Hardy and Harper totaling $172,680 from the gas tax and Measure I funds. $30,000 from the gas tax and $142,680 from Measure I funds.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilmember Allen, second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Please vote.
Motion passes with council members Allen, Hussey, and Robles voting yes, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson voting yes, and the mayor voting yes.
Thank you. City Manager Duffy, it is time for your communications.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. But before I start that, I just want to kind of go over some of the things that I heard the council reference today, and I'll put them on the report backlog and follow up. Councilman Allen had a question or had some concerns that were expressed to him about the landscaping in Susan Petta Park, the south side of the park. There was a tree that is dead and a lot. And we will work with the senior center and the contractor that provides that service. We will work with them to do a thorough review of that particular area. Also, Councilman Hussey referenced the questionnaire regarding the public safety services. And as you may recall, the council did hear that item, and the dollar amounts that the staff brought forward was, the council felt that was not a good use of the money at the time. However, I have received some additional information that someone's mentioned they can provide us with community surveys for much less cost. So we are examining that right now to bring that to the council to look at that.
Let me interrupt you here, 'cause procedurally, we're way off the map again. We had a workshop that we would have, before there was 1 hour of staff work that had to be done, at least 2 council people had to agree that it was going to be done. So what we're doing is, one person says something and it becomes a return to, as an agenda item. So, I mean, don't act puzzled. I mean, this isn't something that we should be puzzled about. This is something that we spent an entire afternoon on.
No,
So,
I'm not puzzled by it. What I'm trying to do is just repeat back what I heard.
yeah, but there's not an
And-
opportunity here for me to say, for example, and what I was waiting for in this communications was to say, if you could, when you get done, provide an opportunity for one of us to affirm something that somebody's brought up that they want to return. So that there's two people, that the process that we had agreed to, saying that, yes, we want something to come back to on a future agenda item.
Okay. What I'm trying to do is, my process is that you guys said something, I'm putting in a report backlog, and you can look at it at that point to see where it is on the report backlog. I'm not bringing something back to you immediately. And we need to go back and look at that whole scenario in terms of the two member.
Right, because there's some things that, for example, that, when we had long discussions about this, if something's going to come back, why are we going to expend staff time on it and then bring it back if there's not even at least two council people that even want it? So we had this process.
Councilmember Robles? What Mr. Duffy is doing is something that he promised us he would do, is that at the end of the council meeting, he would give a recap of what he heard so that we would know that he heard us. I don't know that I think he said he was going to bring back the survey, but I think he was doing that because it had come to us and we determined that it was too high a cost. I don't think he was bringing that back based on something that was brought up tonight.
No, but see, here's the thing. I want the survey to come back.
Okay.
I know you do.
Right, and so what I heard him say is that prior to tonight, he had already heard about a community survey company that would do it for a cheaper price, and he's just taken this opportunity to let us know that it's coming back. That's what I heard him say.
Yeah, but what I see is, and you know, I mean, a lot of it's to my benefit. I say something, it makes a list, and staff starts working on it. So there's a lot of things on that, you know, we're not going through an affirmation process
Right.
because we just seem to not get our bearings on it.
I think we haven't nailed down that process
Yeah.
yet, and so I
Well, we
think
nailed
that's.
it down, but we haven't adhered to it.
Well,
I mean,
I
otherwise.
don't know that it's in writing anywhere. We don't have a policy for how we do it.
Well, actually, it is in writing.
Is it?
Because you guys adopted my work implementation plan.
Okay.
And in that plan, you laid out your goals and objectives. And then I presented to you a work plan that you guys approved the work plan. And these items are consistent with the work plan that you approved. I brought to you before the item, and Councilperson Robles is correct. A lot of the things on the items that she referenced, so we're not because she brought them, but she referenced those things, so I understand her point. The thing is, the questionnaire that you brought back, you didn't approve it because you felt the cost was prohibitive. You didn't say you didn't want the survey. So that's the reason why I'm saying I was given.
Well, I think we're going off. We have a difficult time where we're spending, a weekend. I'm giving up a weekend to discuss these things and talk about procedures, and then they're gone immediately. So I don't want to spend another weekend if you're not going to listen to what our procedures are and we're not going to go with them. This is different from your adopted work plan or whatever. This is about if something new comes up and a council person brings it up, then there has to be a second person affirming that to make it an additional part of your work item. Because if we voted no on a survey, I don't think anyone here really thinks that meant that it just kind of went away until the price changed.
So you're saying that the assumption is that you didn't want the work plan anymore? Is that?
No,
Mr. City
no,
Attorney?
we'll talk about that.
Madam Mayor, I mean, obviously, this is not on the agenda.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is I work with the city manager, and maybe we can kind of figure this out and bring something back to the council for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager?
Also, the comment was the need to have more information come out to the community regarding the trail. And one of the things that we're doing is we'll be bringing back a consultant's report on the design of the Blue Mountain Trail, so that should be handled at that point in time. And then there was a comment about the continued concern of the community about the perceived car lot on Michigan and Barton Road. And so I'm working with the property owner in that. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson made a reference to the need for additional transportation dollars. I just did want to point out that on packet page 45, I did identify in that staff report that I would be putting that on the report backlog and trying to find an avenue to look at the overall ways to look at costs associated with getting the increased funding as we discussed. I couldn't find a funding source legislative funding source in the item, and I referenced that. We had a broad-based discussion, but I thought the council wanted me to bring back those items that were tangible with dollars and then follow up with the other items. Other than that, I have one slide to show the council. This week is going to be the 2019 point-in-time homeless count. And so we will be sending some of our staff out that has been trained by the county, and they'll be going through the city and trying to identify places where homeless have gathered, where they're sleeping, and try to identify if they're there or if there was presence of a homeless in a particular area. Doing the homeless count is very important, as it's done by the entire county at the same time. And so those numbers will determine future revenue for the county in terms of assistance and aid. And so that's an important thing for us that our staff has been trained on going on taking care of. With that, Mayor, that completes my report.
Councilmember Wilson.
Just a clarification, is that just within the city limits?
Our people will be working just in the city limits, yes.
Understood, thank you.
All right, with that, we have no closed session tonight, so we are adjourned until the next regular city council meeting, which will be held Tuesday, February 12, 2019 at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on a future agenda must be made in writing and submitted to the city clerk's office, and requests will be processed in accordance with council procedures. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for your discussion. We are adjourned.